This is Signal and Noise, bringing clarity to data, tech, and AI.
Possible 2026 this is Signal and Noise podcast, and we are close to the end of the event. We've got 322, so we've got, technically it's kind of over. We're like less people here, but people are still milling about. So
oh, goodness.
I have a special guest here, Laura Foster, SVP Marketing at GumGum.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Glad you can make it.
Yeah.
Glad you could help us close out the show.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a banger.
It'll
TBD.
I'm not worried. All right. Well, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Where do I start?
Where do you start?
I will probably talk about GumGum for a moment, right? Because I'll give that a little bit of a plug.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I get to work for a company and use technology and be a human being at the same time. And that makes me so grateful every single day when I wake up. And I get to be a human being in whatever context that means. GumGum started with contextual advertising. It was kind of our fundamental belief from the beginning that what you're reading or watching is likely the most important signal to determine whether or not it's time for an ad, right?
Sure.
But when you think about the way you brief someone, or when you think about the targeting parameters, it always starts with age and gender. And I think it's right because I like to say that you need a box for a brief because then you know how to break out of it.
Yeah, that's part of identity, right?
Exactly. You need to understand those things. But age and gender in 2026, not as easy as it was in the 1950s.
That's true.
And I'm a new mom. I had a little,
Congratulations.
Thank you, 6 months ago. And there are moments in which it's the right time to serve me a diaper ad. And there are many moments in which it is not.
You probably don't want to think about diapers.
Also, I think about diapers once every hour, no matter what. But do I fall in the age and gender and demo and probably diaper intender category from some third-party segment? Yes, absolutely. But the most important part is the moment of receptivity. And finding that is difficult. And
is that where contextual signals come in?
And that's where the contextual comes in. But that's still the base. So GumGum founded on that, grew up in that, believes in that, built an entire business on that. But the reality is, context of what I'm watching or reading only goes so far. There's also, have I previously engaged with the brand? There's also, am I in the right mindset to actually be open to that ad, to view it, to watch it? There are great moments in which to serve me spa ads. Can I have more of those? I don't get them that often, though. And there are a lot of times when it might be actually the perfect time to serve me an ad for diapers. But how do you tell as an advertiser? It's not when I'm reading about diapers, which I think is what everybody thinks when they hear contextual advertising. They think, oh, she's researching best parenting tips. This is a great time to serve her diaper advertising. No, it's already in my cart. I'm just waiting for that other product add to my cart, and then it'll make sense to check out so that I don't have Amazon
That should be the worst time to serve you up that ad, right?
Exactly.
You'd be completely waste of an impression.
And that is the biggest thing. Like, we still in this industry want to find these perfect little constructs of age and gender and context. And I think it's easy because there's buckets of money there. But the reality is we're all human beings at the end of the day. And my mood, my moment, what I want to do shifts every micro millisecond.
Contextual signals. I mean, I agree. It's like, it's funny too. I remember there was a big push when cookies started going away. There's a big push for contextual, and it seems like it just kind of fell off, right?
Yeah. And I think it was framed around, oh, you don't want to target people anymore. Identity's, sacred. And GumGum made a lot of money in that. That was a really good business for a couple of years. I've spent too long in ad tech and I've been on both ends of that cookie conversation. Will they, won't they? Written thousands of
damn you, Google, right?
Yeah, thousands of POVs that have wrecked whatever I was working on that day. They just really...
I spoke at so many battles about it. It was so fun.
At the end of the day, it actually really didn't freaking matter because everyone forgot that 50% of the internet, at least in the States, uses Safari. And uses the iPhone.
I think 70%, up to 70% of traffic, when you're factoring in mobile, people in Safari, plus people who have, don't have cookies or don't accept them. It's around up to 70% of traffic doesn't have them anyway.
Exactly. So we hyper obsessed on something and GumGum rightly used it as a way to sell contextual, and then it fell off. The reality is it's additive. It's not or, it's an and. It's sure my age and gender, great. Sure, the geolocation of where your product is available, of course. Maybe those are hard parameters or hard rules, but then it's the moment. It's what I'm reading, what I'm watching, where I'm at in my day, the time of day, the weather. All of these things are also signals that come through on the ad call. Most of the time we ignore them, but they have the largest impact on what I'm going to do.
The way DSPs work, they prioritize IDs, right? And, I get why they do that, but like there's a lot of signal there that's just being missed that, coming from a supply that's incredibly valuable, right?
Yeah. Gosh, if you really think about it, there's probably thousands of signals that come through on the impression call because you can tie it to an IP address, which means you can tie it to a geo, which means you can tie it to census data, which means you can and. If a human being, which is who's usually on the other end, at least so far, of most of these buys, has to think about it, they think about it as layers. So they think Laura Foster in Los Angeles, new mother, let's find more hers. And then they add those targeting layers. And at some point, you've narrowed and narrowed and narrowed. You're paying $1,000 to find the Laura lookalike. And at the end of the day, Laura lookalike might be the exact person you need to hit, but if you're hitting them in the wrong moment, it doesn't matter. It's completely wasted. So there's ways to let technology do what technology does best. Take a look at all of these signals, model all of them, the likelihood of them to matter in real time, and then use that as logic to bid or not bid. And it's not just contextual. That's what's really cool about it. It's, there's clear ones like, oh, if it's hot and sunny, maybe my makeup is melting off and maybe it's a great time to remind me that Sephora is having a sale, right? There's also ones that are maybe less apparent immediately on its face. And if you really nerd out and go deep into it, it's vector modeling and game theory, et cetera, and predicted likelihood of an outcome.
I think people love to nerd out.
Oh my
and I think a lot of our audiences, I don't want to say they're nerds, but they probably like nerd
We're all
stuff.
freaking nerds. I am also not embarrassed to say I'm a weirdo. It's fine. That's how you survive in this business? Correct.
That's how to survive any length of time, let's face it.
Totally. My 6-month-old, I'm praying for her to be weird.
It's funny. It's like this podcast, my daughter's 12 and like I've tried to get her to listen to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get like I showed this to like my hairdresser, like found out I do a podcast. He was like, I want to listen. So I gave it to him. And the next time I saw him, I said, I didn't understand anything. He said, I'm not going to listen to your podcast anymore. I said, I get it. It's for people like who are in this industry who like to nerd out on like bidstream and stuff like that. So I think it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, go nerds. So looking back at this, I mean, there was this debate over the last couple of years about resellers versus not being resellers, like the SSP space. Love your comments on that.
Yeah. The first thing that popped in my head is like, I don't care because that's us speak. That's not human beings speak. And when I go back to like when I started my career and AOL and Yahoo and MSN were all separate.
We'll talk Yahoo later. I'm excited to meet with them.
I still love them, right?
Yeah.
But
they're making a comeback, which is pretty cool.
It was all about It was all about the audience specifically that they could acquire that no one else could acquire. And the reality is I was checking AOL and Yahoo and MSN every single day. And it's the same debate in streaming now with the premiums out there. Like, oh, our audience is so niche, our data is so niche, blah, 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 blah. No, it's not. I'm going to watch Netflix and then I'm going to switch to Hulu because you have another show that I like, right? And maybe I'm going to light up a subscription one day and then cancel it the next day because I got all of the content I want out of it. So resellers versus not resellers, I think, transparency of fees, but you need to remember that you're trying to talk to a human being on the other end. And where is less important than when and why and how.
That's a good point. I think there are some SSPs that you could definitely say are back mostly as resellers, right? And I don't think they're adding tons of value.
Yeah.
What I've seen and I've seen, but clearly like an SSP, like the fact they're sitting closest to supply. I mean, I was having dinner with Hearst, who's been a client of mine and partner of mine for many years, and like they love their relationship with SSPs, right? And like it's like they acknowledge how critical it is to have these partners who can help you bring to market. So,
and I think everyone's trying to figure out like what is the right balance and where maybe can you edge some of those steps out, because every single tech layer you add, of course, there's fees, right? And then there's data pass, and then don't even get me into like the state of sustainability of all those passes. But at the end of the day, you need to work with partners that drive your outcomes, and that should be the most important thing.
yeah, I think also brands need to understand too, like if for okay, let's say a publisher, like it's not about having as many relationships as possible, right? And ultimately, if you're connected to all these SSPs, and and you've got everyone with header bidding, like at some point it does slow down page load, ad load. The user experience is got to be part of that, right? So I think finding the right partners on the supply
It
side.
always has to be about the human on the other end. And even as we are all investing so heavily in AI and figuring out the role that it should play in all of our lives, both at home and at work, it comes back to if it creates a human connection, good. If it doesn't, bad. And it's just that simple. But I think we forget when we nerd out.
What are some things you're working on right now? I think there's actually a lot of really cool innovation on the supply side of things. And I think the pendulum kind of swings, right? And I think for a while DSPs were, I think, making some interesting moves, and they still are. But I think like working with people on the supply side, like Chalice was in here yesterday, for example, like with Adam about stuff they're doing. There's just, I think, as some capabilities and functionality migrates, let's say from demand into supply, it's opening up some really interesting opportunities and some cool innovation on supply side. I'd love to hear what you're like, if you're able to share anything from your roadmap.
Yeah, I think we're actually going to do a whole webinar. I'm a big believer in transparency, because transparency is how you get feedback, and feedback is how you get a good roadmap. So one of the biggest things I'm super interested in is how do we connect signals, and how do we give our supply partners a data edge? Because they are all, again, selling the same audience, and the differentiator then becomes the data. How do we give them insights about their audience that maybe they didn't know, that they can then put into their materials, their decks, etc.? And then how do those things change? One of the things with mindset and huge on our roadmap is something we're calling snapshots. It's basically a summary of every signal and the level of an importance that signal has on every bid and every impression. And every single snapshot is directly tied one-to-one to an impression, but not directly tied one-to-one to a person necessarily. So my snapshot at 7 a.m. is going to look totally different from my snapshot right now, because I'm in a different mindset and in a different mood. But there's really cool insights for publishers in that too. Like if you think about streaming specifically and you think about something like pod position, well, everyone's like, oh, I want to be first. And it's like, well, first is right after the content ended. So as a human being, I know that's the moment I can run to the bathroom, right?
Maybe being first is not such
so
a good
maybe
idea.
First is not the best, right? There's other things too, like time of day and how that influences. And that's like pod position, but in your life. We think about prime time, but prime time is not the same as it used to be, because now I record it or I stream it and I can watch it whenever I want to watch.
That's a good point. Like, you're looking at like linear, like day parts is such a big part of your planning and buying. But you're right. I think with CTV, I'm not saying it has no role, but like it's clearly people can stream anytime. And you look at the CTV stats, there's a lot of people do watch late at night, right?
Oh,
surprising number.
Yes, a surprising number. I was upstairs yesterday listening to a panel that Adweek was putting on. You're buying CTV, but are you buying it right?
Or are you buying CTV at all, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully everybody is. I don't know, maybe not.
That's how you define CTV.
That's the whole other. But we don't need to go there because the nerds already know.
That would be a whole
the
other
nerds
episode.
already know. We'll do it. We'll do another episode on that.
We had Dr. Fu on a couple weeks ago.
Whoa.
Yeah, and we went pretty deep on that, but keep going.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So yesterday upstairs, they were talking about how a lot of money is spent with YouTube, like $40 billion, like the most streaming money is spent.
Oh, YouTube is TV, right?
YouTube is TV, yeah. Right. But a lot of those are at 2 a.m. So what is the value of a 2 a.m. cat video versus a 4 p.m. I'm going to say spa again because I'm ready to leave the conference and go to a spa. Yeah, I really am feeling the spa today. But, if 4 p.m., there's a different value there. And is that something that can help others juice the buy?
I actually have a couple cigars. I'm going to have a cigar and a bourbon in about an hour.
Sounds amazing.
That's what I planned, not the spa. But
We're in Miami, so on brand.
I'm Miami. It is right. Maybe instead of bourbon, I'll get rum or something.
Yeah.
But I guess but back to this. So a lot of change these days with AI, right? I mean, it's we do have to talk about it, I think, a little bit.
Like not, unfortunately, because at this point, if you aren't using it, I'm confused by you. How? Whoa, what is that like? It's like living life in analog.
So anything to call out in AI space you're working on? I mean, I know you can't probably discuss everything in your product roadmap.
No, the whole thing is AI. So GumGum is completely powered and has been since the beginning by using AI to identify things within images. That's actually where we started and understand the context of those images. Yes, to figure out.
Like, is it able to go into that?
Yeah, it's frame by frame to understand also the right moment. And then we also have technology where you can actually sort of insert an ad on top of the context as it's live, or the content as it's live as well, that we have some supply partners running with us and some advertisers. So
it's almost
love
like
that.
Product placement taken to like a whole next level.
Yeah, exactly. I compare it, definitely wrongly so, but to pop-up video. Back in the MTV days when you would watch the music video and you get the facts popping up over it. But obviously there's major applications, especially in sports. And
Post and I, we actually worked together 25 years ago at a tech company that was trying to, it's just funny, you mentioned a pop-up box. It was called Pop-Up Technologies. And really an agency that had its own technology. It was trying to, it never worked, by the way. It was like a pop-up box that would pop up and then you could complete the transaction in the box.
Yeah.
I mean, it could work. It works now. Like you can do that now. There was no payment system back then. It just didn't work. But, But it was an
now
idea.
Now it's just a QR code.
Totally. It was an idea before its time. So
Exactly. It came back around. But, if we're talking about contextual, that's the base. But then every other signal, okay, well, first of all, you need to capture them, which means you need some pretty powerful technology. Then you need to look at all of them and not just individually, but in combinations and compare the likelihood of each one of those influences. No human being can do that. And to do that also
in 2 milliseconds.
Yes, to do that as quickly, you would need like months. And even then it would be wrong because the moment changed, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all built on AI. That's the only way it can work. And it feels like, I was saying this with my marketing team, like it feels like we planned it and the tech finally caught up to what we originally wanted, which was context is so much broader than what you're reading and watching. It's the context of your environment. It's the context of your relationships, the context of your past experience with the brand, and all of those things matter. And my hope is that as an industry, we stop thinking of contextual as keywords, because it's not, and it hasn't been. And we start thinking about contextual more as how we treat the word context in people's everyday lives.
I love that, because I think there is a lot of misconception, or let's say simplification of contextual and what it is. Obviously, that's part of it, right?
Yeah. And that's why we had to choose a new word. Like we had to choose the word mindset, because we're not just looking at keywords. We haven't been for over 10 years.
But sure, maybe in the past we had to.
Yes.
That's all we had.
That's all we had.
But now we have.
Now we have more, and now we have a very powerful brain in AI that can look at it and understand all of it and predict the likelihood that it's going to convert or make someone remember you, which, is also good. It doesn't always have to just drive a sale.
Very cool. So do you fly home later today?
I am going to enjoy a dinner just with my marketing team tonight.
All right. Good for you.
And no, we're going to talk about work. We probably are, but it'll be with a cocktail. And so then fly home tomorrow.
It's funny. I think last year I had my favorite night of possible was actually the last night, because I went, we had a little CMO dinner, had a couple, old friends, and then the organizer was great. And it was we didn't really talk about work very much, to be honest. Like, it was just more, Good to see you. And it was so chill, and like, the weather was perfect. So I hope you have the same experience.
It's low pressure. Everybody just gets to hang out.
And everyone's a little fried. I mean,
Yes.
so this is now like, I think number 38 of one of these or something like that. So I'm definitely a little fried.
So we're getting his best.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of practice,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That is true.
But this has been a really cool conversation. I appreciate you, putting up with our schedule and
No, not at all.
and maybe location changes.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it was a great conversation. It's good to get to know you.
I was up in the penthouse. They brought me down to the basement.
Yeah. Well, it's the basement, but we have coffee here.
It's true. And a dog.
And a dog. You have a pretty awesome dog. Yeah.
It's awesome.
So, but it's great to see you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Safe travels home,
Yeah.
and keep in touch.
Cheers.